Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Season 2, Episode 8 of the Straight Outta Prison podcast. My name is James K. Jones, and this is my story.
And I am Haley Jones, and this is his story that has now become a part of my story.
So it's our story.
It's our story.
I love our story. Stories are powerful.
Me too.
It's good stuff. So in the last episode, that was one of the most difficult ones for me to record. Actually, going to Donaldson, them trying to turn me into a prison wife, and then spending 6 months in lockup. It's pretty rough. That's been, 24 years ago now. And just having to go back to and reprocess that was very depressing. So, but I think it's good, to get that stuff out. But it has not been, those have just been hard to do. But this one, we're titling this one Donaldson Correctional Facility because I got to a place where I realized that the only way out was through. I didn't realize it. I feel like Jesus spoke that to me. I have something for you here. Let's go. So I'm moving back into general population at probably the most violent prison in the state of Alabama. And I was scared. I was nervous. I had all the emotions going along with it. And it was tough.
It's crazy. So you got into what you said, the most dangerous prison in Alabama. You were there for not even a full day.
Hours
where someone tried to make you their prison wife, which means they tried to rape you, basically.
Yeah.
And then from there, within hours, they put you in lockdown, and then you stayed in lockdown for 6+ months. So now this is just a reentering into like you said, what did you call it? The main
what?
Facility. It's not the main facility. The dorm, the regular dorm.
Yeah, just move back into population.
Yeah, for the first time since that horrible situation happened.
Yeah, so I'd spent the whole summer, spring, summer, and half the winter, half the fall in lockdown.
Okay, so take me to the moment when you're leaving your lockdown cell and going back up to general population.
I was scared. I was probably more scared after being in lockdown because I heard all the stories. And there were people there that had been raped. There were people there that had been, I had a cell partner for a little while. They beat him down and stomped his eye out.
Do you mean you heard more stories when you were in lockdown of things that have been happening there?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Isn't that what I said?
I was just being clear because sometimes you're not clear.
That's true. That's true. That's why God gave me you. But so I'd heard so many other stories, and basically the rules there was you had to stab somebody. You had to remember my story from BCI where I had to hit somebody, and I think I almost got knocked out.
Well, I remember you mentioning that. I think maybe on the ride to.
Yeah, the old timer.
Yeah.
The ride from Kilby. The old timer told me that I needed a knife.
Right. Oh, right. That was it. Okay, so you're walking back up.
I'm going back up. So they put me back in, I think it was exactly the same block that I was in for that few hours. But while I was gone in lockup, they had started some kind of drug program at Donaldson. And so one side of one block was the drug program. It was a really detailed. And then the other side was you're waiting to get in the drug program, so it wasn't quite as violent. So they put me in there like they were trying to get me to go in the drug program. And I was like, I've already been through a drug program. I got the certificate. I'm not doing that again. But that was where they decided to put me for me to figure it out. And walking in there, it's hard to explain those blocks at Donaldson. They are so depressing and dark, and there's just nothing but just concrete and steel. And I got my room assignment, and I go in, and once again, my roommate is a sissy. So I'm like, well, gosh, I feel like everything that I've been through over the last 6 months, I'm just starting it over. So it was very hard, very depressing, but I just tried to keep putting one foot in front of the other. But it was so confusing for me was because there's nothing to do there. It's like the dorms at West Jefferson or Donaldson, they're very similar to the county jail because they just lock you in that block. And you do get to walk down to the chow hall and eat. They don't let you go out in the yard. You're just stuck. And I had a cell partner who was an older man, but he dressed up like a woman. And that, I don't know, I was freaked out. And then, like, the cell there, like, he was burning incense. And, I mean, he was nice, but it was just, I don't know, it was just hard. It was hard to accept the reality of that. And there was so much, it's just bad. I mean, the prison family thing, the whole sex thing, all that was going on in there, and I was having to see it, and it was tough.
So what next? What did you do?
Well, I don't know. I was stuck there for a few days. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, what do I do with my time? I kept studying the Bible, doing everything I've been doing, and I saw a guy that was reading the Bible. I pulled up on him. We started talking. His name was George, and he gave me the prison Jesus test.
What in the world is that?
They just ask you all these questions about what you believe. Do you believe Jesus and baptism? All the things. And he couldn't trip me up on any of the
questions.
Yeah, because I've been, by that time I was pretty sharp with my little, knowledge or whatever you called it. But I think the thing that depressed me the most was I would meet men there who'd been locked up longer than I'd even been alive. And I would question them, what have you been doing? Like, what have you been doing your time all that time? And most of them would say the same thing. Oh, playing dominoes, drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes. And it just felt like such a waste of life. Like, couldn't you figure out something else to do? But a lot of people, there weren't many jobs there because it's a maximum security prison. And you're just stuck. You're just there. You're just passing time, just doing nothing, basically. But in that season, I guess, I didn't have anything else to do, so I felt like I just needed to figure out what was next and just do what was next, but I didn't know what was next. But I knew that I had an experience with Jesus. I knew that God had a plan for my life, but I just couldn't see it working here where I was at Donaldson, because this place was like hell. When I say hell, I'm not exaggerating. It was like hell. But I had a narrative that kept going through my mind of a movie that my mom took me to see when I was a kid. It was Officer and a Gentleman. You know that movie?
I've heard of it. Remind me, though, because I'm not really familiar.
It's like a love story between him, Richard Gere and Deborah Winger, but then it's like a redemption story for him because he come from a really rough background, and his father was in the Navy, but like a low rank. He wanted to be an officer, and to be an officer, you have to go through officer training school. And he was not officer material. And he went to officer training school, and it's kind of like boot camp where they're trying to, like Navy SEALs. It wasn't Navy SEALs, but, where they're just trying to put all the pressure on you to get you to quit. Mm-hmm. And he could do all like physical stuff and mental stuff, but he had like character flaws. Like, he was a hustler, and he got in trouble for something that he did, and the drill sergeant kept him back, wouldn't let him leave for the weekend, and basically just like made him do 1,000 push-ups and scrub the floor with a Q-tip. I mean, just all these things just to get him to quit. And he was pushing him, and he had him out doing push-ups in a mud puddle, and he was spraying him with water, and he just kept saying, "Yes, sir," doing the next thing. And he told him that he wanted him to quit. He told him, you don't belong here. You're not officer material. I want you out. And he just broke down and started crying and said, "I ain't got nowhere else to go. I ain't got nothing else. This is all I got. I don't got nothing else to do. I ain't got nowhere else to go." And I've always loved that part of that movie, especially the end, because he made it through and he became an officer. But
what about that connected? Like, why did you have that in your mind? What connected to you?
Because I didn't have anywhere else to go. I didn't. The only thing I had to hold on to at that time was whatever Jesus had for me and his plan for my life. I didn't have nowhere else to go. And I just felt like it was like, just don't quit. Just keep putting one foot in front of your other, keep trying and just see. And I'd had such a good experience with my spiritual life at Kilby because there were other people like trying to come along. And, it was like, it happened in the Montgomery County Jail. It kind of spread. When I was at Kilby, it spread. When I got to Donaldson, it was like nothing. There was religious people there. I mean, and the chapel there was so depressing. It was, oof. But then I met a guy. His name was Marvin Davis. He had been locked up for like 22 years. And
Wow.
he was part of the hashtag Christian Brotherhood. And at Donaldson,
What's the hashtag Christian Brotherhood?
they call themselves the Christian
Did they say hashtag?
No,
Oh, that's okay.
There was no hashtag then.
I know. Well, I didn't know. I'm making sure.
That would have just been a pound sign or a number sign.
So the Christian Brotherhood, yeah.
Well, they called themselves the Christian Brotherhood, but they were basically like, you had like different kind of gangs running in Donaldson, and then you had the Christian Brothers, and they were like a gang. And I didn't want any part. I didn't want a part of that.
Like they were a gang in the sense that they were violent and manipulative. How you explained other groups?
Not violent. They didn't do violence, but they stuck together, hung together. They protected each other, and they were like the moral police or something. It was weird because they would walk around talking about who was worldly, who wasn't worldly. He's saved. He ain't really saved. Oh, you can't be saved because you smoke cigarettes, or you can't be saved because you play dominoes. It was just something I didn't want to be a part of.
Right. Okay.
But I got connected to a guy named Marvin Davis. He had been in prison for like 20 years, but he said he had an experience with Jesus where he got saved. And I believed what he said, but I didn't. There was like no evidence of that because he was like mean, and he would walk up and down the halls preaching all day, hollering at people, like screaming, hollering, "You're going to hell." And I asked him, "How long have you been doing this?" And he said like 7 years. And I said, "Well, in 7 years of screaming and hollering at people, doing it like that, have anybody like wanted to like come along?" And he had one guy, Julio, that came along. No, Julio was he was African American. He wasn't. There's not a lot of Hispanics in Alabama. I don't know why.
So Julio came along.
Julio came along. So there's two of them that would run around screaming and hollering at people, and they would get the Bible out and just tell. It was just bad. It was not good.
They were beating people with the Bible, like with their words.
Yeah, and it was ugly. It's not something I wanted to be a part of. And then Marvin felt bad. He was a captain's runner, so he could run up and down the hall. We couldn't. Marvin felt bad because the cell partner I had was doing things in the cell that he felt like was not good for me. And I didn't like it either, don't get me wrong. But he said, "You want me to get you moved in the cell with me? Because I can make that happen. I work for the captain." So I was like, well, I was trying to decide, do I want to be in the cell with the guy that's doing the things that I don't like, or do I want to be in the cell with the guy that's going to beat me to death with a Bible all the time? And so I got in the cell with Marvin. He actually ended up becoming a friend to me, and he softened up because we would like try to study together. But I would try to do Bible studies. I would try to, pull people in, and it just wasn't happening there. Nobody wasn't having it. So it was just like, I'm in this block with 96 men, and it was just harsh and hard, and I can't even explain just trying to find my way. Nothing was working there.
Okay, so was there a breakthrough at any point?
Well, I met two guys eventually, next couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
So on the drug dorm side, they could come over on our side because it was the same one block. And I met this tall black guy. His name was Dominic Glover, and they called him Brother Love. And he was kind of like, if you did an Enneagram on Glover, he'd probably be a 7 because he was just like bubbly, kind of like Jamie Golden, just everything.
Yeah.
Hey. But he was in love with Jesus, and he was eager and wanted to learn, and he taught me songs, and we just had a lot of fun together.
Did they just happen to be on the same block? Like, how did you run into them to even meet them?
I think I probably met them when I went to chapel.
Okay, the depressing chapel.
Oh, the chapel there was rough.
Yeah.
I mean, it was rough. It was I don't even know if we want to talk about that right now.
Okay, well, yeah, let's stay on you had a little breakthrough when you met Dominic Glover.
Yeah, and then we started.
Was an Enneagram 7, you think?
Yeah,
you would guess.
I'm sure of it now.
Even though you're not supposed to diagnose, but you can do that since they're not here. But
well, yeah. I think I'm an Enneagram 1, and Enneagram 7s make 1s feel better.
Right.
When I'm around a 7, my spirits lift. Like I feel like Charlotte Guffin or. Anyways, I'm talking about people.
Okay, let's come back to why this was a breakthrough for you when you met these two. Or did you say 2 people?
Yes, but I didn't get to the second person.
Go
so
ahead.
I met Dominic Glover, and then he started coming over. We started studying together, and then I met Chris Townsend. He ended up being one of my best friends, like for life. He was a little bit younger than me, but his story was so tragic. But it was like he had found a way to turn it around. His dad was like like one of those people that never had a home. What do you call that? Like a vagabond?
A transient, I want to say.
I get like he would just.
I'm not sure.
He just roamed around.
Yeah.
Just roamed around 3 or 4 states, and his mom left him when he was little, and he got in trouble when he was like 17, and he got arrested in Bay Minette down in South Alabama where he's from, and when it was arrested for like something stupid, like something minor, something that wasn't even a big deal, but he didn't have anybody to bond him out because he didn't really have a lot of family, and he planned an escape at 17. I think he was 18, and he planned an escape, and he took over. He took over the jail in Bay Minette where he's from, and not by himself. Like he rallied the troops, like all the other inmates, and they took over the jail. They didn't get out, but they almost did, and it was a big deal. You don't do that. So they sentenced him for that plus this little minor crime. They sent him to St. Clair because it was an escape, make sure security max.
Yeah.
And when he was at St. Clair, he was there for like 2 or 3 years, and the whole time he was planning his escape. Like he was just gonna get out. He wasn't gonna be in prison.
Yeah.
And I forget exactly how the story goes, but it's the famous, like among inmates, the story is famous. They call him Lionheart because of what he did. He planned another escape with a bunch of other inmates, and this is a max camp where you got people that have life without parole.
Right.
Like, so it ain't hard to find somebody like, well, let's do it. And they actually stole a fire truck and ran it through the fence. And
okay, how do you steal a fire truck if you're in prison?
For some reason, the fire truck was in one of the gates or something. I don't know the actual details of the story, but they ran it through and got it through one of the fences, but not through 2 of the fences. So then they sent him to West Jefferson and put him in lockup. And he got out of lockup and was trying to, navigate that life. That's a hard life at Donaldson. It's a hard life.
Well, you did it for
it's a hard life. But
6+ months.
He was trying. No, when he got out.
Oh, okay.
Of lockup, he was in general population.
Yeah.
And it was just it was hard. He didn't have any support from the outside. And there's a group of Mennonites that come down in the prison at West Jefferson every January, and they stay for a week. And they come in every day. There's like 50 of them. They just flood the prison, and they don't carry Bibles. They don't fuss at you. They just try to love on you. And he sat down with one of these guys, and he told him that that Jesus loved him. He had a plan for him, and he had an experience with Jesus sitting on a bench there. And this had been about 6 months before I met him, and it changed his whole life. And he reminded me so much of myself because he was in a dark place. Like he told me, I'm not going to tell the story. He told me he was having it rough.
Why aren't you going to tell the story?
Because that's his business. I mean, you can imagine.
Yeah.
What he was dealing with. But he was a fighter, and he reminded me of myself because it was like the way his life flipped, and he had Jesus on the inside of him. He had a real experience, and he was studying the Bible, and I was studying the Bible. And I don't think it took us 5 minutes to become best friends because he he started trying to trip me up with scriptures. And so I was like, keep it coming, you know, what, and we would do that. We would get in debates and go back and forth. And, we developed a fast friendship, and he became like, for me in that place, him and Glover became like little lights for me. Like, there's some life here. I just got to figure it out. But then they were in the drug program. Like, Chris had went through the drug program, and the drug program they had then in Alabama was actually a good one because it was all like discipline, and it wasn't like the drug program I'd been in Florida. And he had learned a lot, and he was had graduated and then was like a leader. Like, it was mostly ran by inmates, but you had to like go through the program, get all the details down, and then do that. But that's what he was doing.
So is this the drug program you're talking about? Is this the one that you're currently in right now? The one that you're talking about that he went through and became a leader?
Yes, I wasn't in the drug program.
Oh, okay.
So drug program was on one side of one block, the right side of one block. I was on the left side of one block.
Okay.
I know this is confusing. So at Donaldson, every block has like a cube in the middle, a left side and a right side, and they're totally separated by bars and steel and concrete.
Okay.
But they're on the same hall. So if you're in one block, you're on the left side or the right side. The right side was the drug program. The left side was people that were candidates for the drug program.
Oh, okay.
So that's where they put me there, even though, you know, I wasn't thinking about, I'm not doing that again. I've already done that.
So you were living on the side that you were a candidate for the drug program, and
Yes.
he had actually been through it.
He'd been through it, graduated, and he was actually working for him and was pretty good at what he was doing. He's a good leader as far as like inmates and stuff. No, he's a leader in general.
So what was next? I mean, it sounds like he was a leader if he was just planning all these escapes and rallying the troops.
Yeah.
I mean, he was leading
He
some.
was leading it, but before that, he was doing it for not good.
Right, yeah.
Kind of like, you know, me and my cousin, we always did stuff for not good. If we could have turned that around and did something for good, we probably would have been, you know, we might have been governor or something. But,
Okay, so how did those two relationships help you move forward, or what happened next, I guess?
we just started, the three of us, we became like the Three Musketeers. We started studying together. We would spend hours, you know, they had to work, and I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything to do.
Why not? Why didn't you have a job? Or why weren't they giving you a job?
There's not jobs there.
Oh, there wasn't jobs for everyone.
I mean,
you said that.
there's
Yeah.
a few, you have to be real lucky to get a job at Donaldson. And probably the best job was being a chapel worker. But there was only I think there was 4 or 5 of them. The chapel there was a trip. It was like its own little institution. The chaplain there, his name was Chaplain Lindsay. He was the one that came around every week and talked to me when I was in lockup, so I didn't have anything for him.
Oh, because, he didn't really act like he cared at all about you.
No,
Yeah.
he did not. And then, but he was also mean. He was so mean. The stuff he would say, and then he's supposed to be the representative of Jesus for the, but anyways, people told me later that he used to be a volunteer and loved inmates, and also then when he came to the chapel, he was just jaded by the time I got to him. And he was a good man, but I never had any warm fuzzies for him while I was there, and it took me about 3 or 4 years out of prison before I ever warmed up to him. Just because he was so mean. And they say you can forget what somebody says, you can get what they do, but you can't forget how they made you feel.
Yeah.
And he always made me feel like I wasn't the real deal.
Yeah.
Like you're not in. But he had 3 or 4 chapel workers, and they were the ones that got to go back and forth. They got to eat food that we didn't get, and they kept the chapel on lockdown. And then I think the neatest thing that happened for me during that time, I went to a service, and remember I told you when I was at Kilby, there was like 2 different religious people that came in, 2 different groups. One of them were more conservative, like Church of Christ, and then these people came in with all the suits on, and they were the Word of Faith people. Remember me talking about that a couple episodes back? Mm-hmm. Well, one of those guys that I met that was wearing the suits, I actually met him at Donaldson again. Gil Frank, you know Gil Franks,
Yes,
and Randy Walker. I met them at Donaldson during this time. they would come in. I think it was once a month they came in and did a chapel service. And, they're still friends of mine to this day, which is neat. And Gil's listening, so hey, Gil. But I met them just trying to do one thing after the next, and then the Christmas of 1997. Remember I told you how beautiful my 1996 Christmas was?
Yes.
Christmas of 1997 was none of that. It was pretty bleak. It was just sad and just... I know I keep saying that.
Yeah.
We need to move on from the sadness. Let's just say it was hard. This was hard. This was a hard time.
Was it hard?
Yes.
Okay, so up to Christmas, how long had you been there at that point? At Donaldson.
I'd been at Donaldson since right after Easter. So what's that, like 7-8 months?
Okay, so 7-8 months total.
And then there was a turn after the new year. I remember that when 1998 came around, I remember thinking, I'm the most depressed that I've ever been in my life, and I don't see a way out. And then I was getting bad news. I still had the case in Shelby County. Then I found out they didn't give me my time served that the judge ordered, and it was like trying to fight all that, and you really don't fight those people. Like, they don't care. We don't care.
Right.
You just shut up and do your time. And it just feeling, I felt so helpless. And then I'm trying to connect to Jesus and pray. And it's like you said, I'm supposed to be here. You got something. What is it? I don't see anything. I see nothing here but pain. And around the beginning of 1998, there was a little bit of I don't know if it was like an emotional, spiritual flip in my head. Like, whatever I got to do, I'm just going to figure it out and do it. So there's a prison ministry that's called Kairos. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it only because of you, but I guarantee you most people that are listening have not. What is it?
It is, they call it interdenominational, which it means everybody's welcome. I think it was started by
like Catholics, Protestants, everybody.
Everybody, they do this together.
Okay.
But it started as a retreat for people, in the free world. It wasn't originally like a prisoner thing. And I think the Catholics call it something, I don't know. I forget the name. It's Crescia or something.
So what is it?
It's basically they take people out of the world for 3 days. Usually they go to a campground. You don't have phones. You don't have TVs. You don't have anything. And the people it's like they call it a walk because it's a 3-day. The Methodists call it Emmaus. The Catholics call it Crescia. It's the same, but it's the same thing.
Okay.
And it's basically you spend 3 days just like disconnecting from the world and trying to get spiritually closer to God. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's a powerful thing that they do. But they started doing it years and years ago in prison, and they named it Kairos because Kairos is a Greek word for time that's in the Bible. In the Greek language, there's like different, like we have one word for love. I love you because you're my wife. I love hot dogs, and I love dogs.
Right.
But in the Greek language, they had like 5 or 6 different words for love. So there's like agape and eros and, I don't want to get lost in that. But in the Greek, there's 2 words for time. There's chronos and there's kairos. Chronos time is like the calendar. It's just regular time. Kairos time was like a special time or special season, and it means like God's special time. So they wanted to do that they named that for the Kairos prison ministry because they're taking us out of prison for 3 days.
Where are you going if they're taking you out of prison?
To the chapel.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the draw though was food. Like they fed you from the time you got there until the time you left.
So did you just go in the morning and then go back at
you had
time?
You had to go sleep in your cell at night, but you were there literally for 3 days, the whole 14 hours, whatever that is. And they bring in there's 12 tables. Every table has 3 or 4 free world leaders, and basically they're just loving on you. That's all they're doing. And there's like little spiritual exercises. They share the gospel and stuff like that. But It's not religious. They're not coming at you. They're not telling you that you're a sinner and you're going to hell and, God hates you because you're a criminal. And it's a beautiful thing that goes on in the prison, but you have to be chosen to go to a Kairos.
That was actually my next question. Like, how did they choose who got to go to this thing?
Well, remember I talked about Chaplain Lindsay and the chapel workers?
Yeah.
They ran that.
Okay.
So you had to have some kind of in with them. Like, they chose who went.
And how many guys got to go at a time?
I think it was like, don't quote me. I can fact check this later. I've got my picture from my Kairos weekend. Like 40 maybe.
Okay.
30, 40. But then you'd have the same amount of free will guys. And they had these ladies outside the prison in a church somewhere, just cooking all day long, cooking. You go in, you got breakfast, and you got cooking, and they were famous for the cookies, because the cookies just, there was a bowl in the middle of the table.
Y'all can't see this. He's doing cookies like he's throwing a frisbee. Like over
the cookies just kept coming.
It was like cookies for
coming.
days.
The cookies on the Kairos weekend were so good that the chapel workers would take the bowls where they put the cookies in the middle of the table, and they would save the crumbs. I'm serious.
What made them so good?
We didn't have nothing at Donaldson. We didn't have even the commissary didn't even have anything good to eat.
Yeah.
It was just like it was like bread and water and meat patties.
You know how these old ladies who were like master chefs, basically.
Oh my gosh,
Cooking
the
the food.
food. No, but like when you're on a diet, and you don't eat something for a long time, and then when you get it, it tastes so good.
Yeah.
Think of that times years.
Yeah.
So it's been years since you've had a real good, like a homemade cookie.
Right. Or meal.
Man.
All of it.
But the Kairos prison ministry is amazing. But there's a lot that goes into that. They do it twice a year. And then after you go, you can only go through Kairos once. And then if you're a chapel worker, you go through all of them because that's what they got to do. But you could only go through it once. And after that, you once you completed it, then they came in every Wednesday morning and had a little small group thing that you could go to. And then I think once or twice a year they would do some kind of they call it a reunion or something. So this was the best thing going at Donaldson Correctional Facility.
It was kind of like a camp. It reminds me if you said like they had a little reunion,
yeah,
to relive the memories.
Well, then you remember they tell you you'll remember your number. And so I was like, I'm not going to remember that number. But this has been 1998 was when I did mine. I'll never forget. I'm James K. Jones, Kairos number 27, Donaldson Correctional Facility. So I was the 27th Kairos thing. Like, you got a number.
Oh, the 27th. So when they go in to do this thing, that's the 27th time they've gone in there to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, no, like if I met them now, and I've went back and did some of that. I don't want to get lost in this. But, like, when you greet them, I'm James, Kairos number 27, Donaldson Correctional Facility.
Okay.
And that's how you, identify. It's pretty neat. It's very neat what they do. But they were gaining a lot of influence with the administration and with the chaplain because there were so many different people coming in. And Chaplain Lindsay was like a politician. Like, they built him a new chapel. They would buy him speakers and chairs. And, I had a friend of mine that's is a pastor. He told Chaplain Lindsay one time, this is the only prison in the world that you have to pay to come into. Like, usually they welcome you to come in. You want us to give you some chairs to get in here. But, I mean, he was, there's not a budget for that in Alabama. So he played the game pretty well. But they decided that they wanted to have a Christian dorm, a Kairos dorm.
Who's they?
The Kairos people.
Oh, okay.
Because there were tons of them. I mean, there were, probably 100 of them at that time.
So when you say the Kairos people, do you mean the prisoners who attended or the free will people?
No, the free will people.
Oh, okay.
The people that put on the weekends.
Okay.
They put a lot of pressure on that because this is a very violent prison. This is bad. And so they would, there's one story of a guy that went through a Kairos weekend and had an experience with Jesus, and then but he had a lover, like a homosexual lover, and when he got out of his Kairos weekend, had an experience with Jesus and told his lover that he was a Jesus follower, he killed him. So,
What?
Yeah, this was a violent place. It's still a violent place.
He killed him?
Yeah, people die all the time at Donaldson.
Golly.
You remember me telling you when I first got there and they told me what you want to do with my body?
Oh yeah.
That's a real thing. It is everything you saw in the movies and feared was there at Donaldson. And
Wow.
that was, but anyways, these people want to start a Christian dorm, and they'd been like hammering and beating and begging and pleading and trying and all that stuff. I was not in. I thought that was the stupidest thing in the world because the Christian Brotherhood,
Right.
all
You
they
were
did was
connecting it.
fight. I mean, all they did was fight. They would fight over, Melchizedek and just stupid stuff they would find in the Bible and they fight over it. And was Jesus black or was he Chinese or was he white or was he this? And I couldn't see how that could work. Like there's no way you can put all those people together because they don't even like you would go out to the chapel and then they would get in fights that like not physical fights but like fights with their words. Kind of like what people do now on social media where they go back and forth and they just
Yeah.
needle and pick and come up
Yeah.
with it, and say this, say that. They would, some of the funniest ones I ever saw, the way the Christians would get in a fight was they would say, "Brother, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." And then the other brother would say, "No, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." "Well, I bind you in the name of Jesus, and I render you harmless and ineffective against me." And then they would go back and forth, back and forth.
Oh
And
my
it's like,
gosh.
I'm not into all that. I ain't doing all that. I love Jesus. I love the word. I'm ready.
So you couldn't see the Christian dorm. Were they able to make it happen?
I couldn't see it, but it was a big buzz. But so for a time me and Chris were studying the scriptures. He had got a hold of this thing where if you believe something, it can happen. So he believed that he was going to make parole. And his first parole date was coming up in 1998. So I thought he was crazy. I told him, "Yeah, bro, you ain't going to make parole." I mean, you don't make 99% of the time you don't make it on your first go anyways. But because of all of his escapes and all the trouble he had been and all the things that he had done, there ain't no way.
Right. Okay. When you say make parole, does that mean he's going to get out?
All right, let's explain parole.
Yeah. Or when you say he's going to make parole.
Okay, in Florida, they didn't have parole. You finish your sentence.
Okay.
In Alabama, there's a board of pardons and paroles. So if you get sentenced to, say, a 10-year sentence, I think Chris had a 25-year sentence. So you get a parole date. That means it's usually some years in. So he was like 4 or 5 years in, and he got a parole date. So you go up for parole, and they put you in front of the parole board. That's in Montgomery. And they read off your charges, and then if you have any victims, they get to say either he should get out or he should not get out. And then you have people that go down there for you, or your family can go. Anybody can go to your parole. It's a hearing.
Yeah.
And that I've went for a couple guys. It's scary, but it's basically if you have a 20-year sentence and you've served, 3/4 of that or half, whatever it is. When you make parole, you still have that sentence. You're still sentenced, but they let you out. And then you have a parole officer, and you can, basically finish your time out in the free world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's similar to probation, but not because you belong to them. If you make parole, you belong to your parole officer. If your parole officer wants to come in your house, if he wants to come to your job, they can lock you up anytime they want to and send you right back to prison.
Right. Okay.
So parole is scary, but
you're still out.
you're out. Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll get into that when I get closer to getting out because I made parole.
Okay. So Chris had his first parole date. He thought he was believing it. And you were like, "No way, bro."
I was trying to encourage him. I was trying to encourage him, but I was like, I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I mean, just because of I read his like charges, like that's pretty bad. Like, you don't do stuff like that and then expect us to trust you to go, because
Right.
it's not going to work out well for you. But he was believing that, and he was just into that. Like, and studying and doing and all the things. And then Glover, he was trying to learn like the scriptures and stuff. Like we would spend a lot of time studying, but he taught us like the old African American hymns because he grew up in church. And we used to sing like, oh man,
Sing the paint off the walls.
Yeah, but it was good. It was all we had, and we would get together.
So what's something you sang? Sing it. Go now.
Usually when I start singing, people tell me to stop.
Well, I'll tell you to stop after like one line or so.
I had one song that I sang.
Okay.
So
what was it?
But Glover would always say, he was silly. He would always say, "Brother James gonna get out and have a ministry," and you know every good minister have at least one song. At least one song. That's your song, brother. Can't nobody else sing that song but Brother James. The song was called "He's an On-Time God."
You gotta sing some of it.
I'm embarrassed.
It's just me here.
Well, see, but I would sing the song, and then there would be somebody that would snap their fingers, like snapping, and then Brother Glover, we called him Brother Love. He would go ba-doo, 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 do-do-do-do-do.
Okay, I'll snap my fingers and you sing.
Okay.
Okay.
This is awkward, baby.
Okay, go.
He's an on-time God. Yes, he is. Oh, on-time God. Yes, he is. Job said he may not come when you want him, but he'll be there right on time. He's an on-time God. Yes, he is. Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. And then there's a lot of that went to it, but we actually added our own. We made up an ending to that. It was one of them was, "You can ask the children of Israel trapped up at the Red Sea by that mean old Pharaoh and his army. They had water all around them, and Pharaoh on the track.
Oh, yeah.
But out of nowhere, God stepped in and made a highway just like that. Let me tell you, he's an on-time God." Yes, he is. But we added an end to that. There was a inmate named Ricardo Cook who had he was on death row. He got saved in a Kairos. They did a Kairos on death row. Somehow he got his death sentence converted into a life without parole sentence. And then somehow he got it converted into a life sentence, and he made parole. And, you know, amazing story. But he was our hero. Like, he came in. He was the one. So he
went from, like, death row to life without parole, and then he made parole to actually get out.
He went from death row to life without parole to a life sentence. Life sentence you can make parole on.
Okay.
And then, but you'll just be on parole for life.
Yeah.
And then he made parole and got out. And then he started a church, and he's been in Birmingham now for about 30 years.
So the song.
I think you've met Ricardo.
I think I have too, actually.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
So what of the song did you make up for him, you said?
We did an addition to it because there was like 4. You can ask Paul and Silas, you can ask the 5,000 that Jesus fed, or you can ask Ricardo Cook, trapped upon the death row by the state of Alabama with no chance of making parole.
Keep going. Was there more to it?
There's too much. I don't want to be. This is not a singing
podcast.
I
know, but we gotta hear the end of Ricky Ricardo.
Not Ricky.
Oh,
Ricardo.
not Ricky.
Ricardo Cook.
Ricardo Cook.
Just finish. Ricardo Cook.
Yeah.
Trapped upon the death row by the state of Alabama with no one to make parole. No way to make parole. I can't remember what it was now. I can't remember.
But then we can just jump to.
But that God
he's
had
an on-time God.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, Ricardo gave us a lot of hope. His story gave us a lot of hope.
Yeah,
it was good. But Glover, he was silly. Like he was, it's like in his 40s, so he was like double my age. But he was like a little kid that found Jesus and he would believe. I remember he was complaining to me one time about, he didn't have no money. Nobody sent him any money. And I said, well, go give something away. Be nice to somebody else. And he was like, no, brother, I ain't finna get ready to do that. And he came back like 3 hours later, was crying, weeping. And I said, what's the matter with you? He said, remember you told me to give something away? And I said, yeah. I mean, I wasn't really like trying to tell you what to do. I was just giving some advice. And he said, I got back in my cell and I felt like the Spirit of the Lord told me to give away my hair grease.
His hair grease?
Hair grease. And I only had, it was brand new, but it was the only one I had. It was the only thing I got. And he gave it away. He gave it to somebody. And then somebody came along and gave him a bag or something. And so he was just like weeping. And I was like, and I told you to do that? I said do that. But it wasn't that I was like trying to instruct him or telling him what to do. I was just tired of hearing him complain. Like, do something else. But Glover and I I guess he influenced me in a good way, but he would do stupid stuff that I would never do. So we were in a chapel service. It was packed. It was the Sunday chapel service was always packed. And this group came in, and the man was up there, and he had on a neck brace. And he was explaining that he was in an accident, he hurt his neck. And we're like middle of the chapel back, sitting there, and the guy was talking, and Glover leaned over to me, and he said, I feel like the Spirit of the Lord told me I'm supposed to pray for that man. And I said, really? I said, I thought the same thing. But I was saying, like, Jesus, please help the man with his neck.
Like you were going to do it in your seat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quietly. He stood up in the middle of the chapel service and said, excuse me, brother, excuse me, brother, excuse me. We know that the Lord sent y'all in here to be a blessing to us, but we just want you to know that we can be a blessing to you, because we's a blessing too, because we's the church here. And me and my brother James want to come pray for you. And I was like, no.
You were like, no, I've already prayed for him in my seat quietly.
Don't do that to me. But the guy invited us up there to pray for him. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, how did you get me into this? And, because it's packed and there's always free will people. And then they got these two little struggling inmates straggling up there. But we prayed for him. And it was amazing. I don't know that I've ever prayed for anybody and felt like God's presence like it was that day. And we went back and sat down, and he took his neck brace off. But I would have never done that. I mean, I wish I was more like that, but Glover would do anything if he felt like it was what he was supposed to do or what Jesus wanted him to do. He would go do it. And but the guy actually left his neck brace in the chapel.
Oh,
it was crazy.
That was
awesome. Crazy. And then it was always something.
Okay, before you go any further, we never finished
what?
When Chris went up for parole and what happened. Did he get parole? Did he not?
Let's talk about that in the next episode.
What? That's such a cliffhanger.
Well, he didn't.
Okay, we can wait.
Let's wait. See what happens. Because there was a lot that happened between us.
Okay.
After that.
Okay.
So there was one, the Kairos people were doing this Christian dorm thing. And it was a buzz, and, I'm not doing that. So I'm praying, trying to figure out what's next for me. We were having they called us the Three Musketeers. Because you had, like I was a little skinny white boy, and then Chris was, he lifted weights, so he had that was his strategy. He was going to have big muscles so people would mess with him.
He was buff.
He was what?
Buff.
Buff? What does that mean?
Isn't that the right word? Like if you're buff? Like you have muscles. Isn't that what that means?
I would not say that about another man. Hey, bro.
I'll look that up.
You're looking mighty buff. All he did was work out. So you had me, you had him. They called him Lionheart because he did look like a little lion. And then Glover was like 6'4", big black guy, older man. And none of us matched each other. But we had one thing in common, and that was that we'd had an experience with Jesus, and God was doing his thing in our life. So there was a morning, but they still lived they were still on the drug program side. I was on the other side by myself, so they would come over 3 or 4 hours a day, and it got more, like they would come over more, but I couldn't go over. Like, I wasn't allowed on the other side, but they were allowed on my side. Does that make sense? So I always had to wait on them to come over. Chris came in right after breakfast one morning. No, it couldn't have been breakfast. Did I tell you they fed breakfast there at 2:30 in the morning?
Yeah, you did. You said that.
It was one thing when you're in lockup to get breakfast in the middle of the night, but when you were in population, they woke you up and you had to walk down to.
Yeah.
You had to get up in the middle of the night and walk down, eat breakfast, and come back. And you had to eat it because you were hungry.
That's crazy.
He came. I know it was early in the morning because I was still like trying to wake up. He was like, "They did it! They did it! They did it!" And I was like, "They did what? They got us a dorm." And I was like, "Who?" He was like, "The Kairos people." So I said, "Good, that's great for y'all. I'm not doing that." He's like, "No, I put your name on the list, and they're moving us right now. They're fixing to call your name."
What?
And I was like, I'm not living in. I'm not doing that." And he said, "Well, me and Glover are going." And so I was like, "Well, I guess I'm going." I guess I'm going. I mean, the only reason I went was because they went. Mm-hmm. And they were going to leave me. And I didn't, whatever was happening to me during that time, I still had like PTSD.
Oh, yeah.
I actually Googled that and looked that up the other day, PTSD. Because after we taped the last 2 episodes, like I've been depressed, like bothered. But I did. I mean, what does that stand for? Post-traumatic stress syndrome?
Yes.
I was still in a bad place. And just like mentally, and I was still scared. Like, the same things that happened to me when I got there could still happen to me again. So accepting the next, like whatever's next, and it was just, it was hard. But because they were my only people that I was really like connected to, and they were my friends, at that time they were my best friends. Mm-hmm. They were leaving me, so I went with them. And
so they called your name.
And we packed our stuff and moved down the 3 block.
Wow.
But we'll probably want to pause that here and talk about that next because that was a whole nother experience. I'll tell you all about it and how I realized that was the plan that Jesus had for me all along.
It's exciting. So next time we're going to hear if Chris eventually got parole or that first time you moving to this new Christian dorm.
Well, in process, they realized that they couldn't. There's no way to have a Christian dorm. So if you have a Christian dorm, then the Muslims are going to want to have a Muslim dorm.
Right.
And so they came back and said, we can do this like the Kairos people want them to do it, but we're going to have to figure out a way to finagle it. So it ended up being only 12 of us said yes.
Wow.
That went to that dorm. So they put us in a violent block of 96 men, 12 of us, to start this thing. And it wasn't easy, but it was an experience that I'll never forget, and it has affected the Alabama Department of Corrections up to this day.
That's awesome.
What we went through.
Quick question before we move on, if you can answer. Are you still in touch with Chris?
We've lost touch now. He lives out. Actually, I don't know where he is now.
But Chris Townsend, and do you know if he's in prison still?
No,
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. He when he got out, he was addicted to like ministry. Like he wanted to do ministry. Like go around and talk and do all that.
Addicted to ministry. That's probably something we're going to have to unpack later on a future episode.
That might be one we could put on the For Real.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people. I mean, we know people that all they want to do is go to church and go to meetings, and then they don't wash their dishes.
Are you talking about me?
No. I would never let you get that far out there. No, but anything you can. Jesus is wherever I am because he's in me. So it's like you don't have to follow all these. I'm part of my church. The local church is the hope of the world. But like when you get into like these big ministries, then people start following them all over the place. And, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Well,
we'll pause that there.
I'm very excited to hear about this next.
It was a miracle of what happened, and we'll talk about it in the next episode. But we found out later that the administration there were like, give these Kairos people a Christian dorm so that it'll fail, and they'll quit bugging us about that. Let them go do it. Just let them do whatever, but it's not going to work, so just let them do it so it'll fail so they can shut up. But it didn't fail. So that's a good...
All right. Well, I can't wait.
Can't wait?
Yeah, to the next episode. Because I didn't even, several things we've talked about, I did not know, until...
What?
Well, like the Chris thing and Chris Townsend and the Dominic Glover, and that's how... Because truth be told, he James, I'm telling you guys now, sings that song in our home, and like since we got married,
That's my song.
that's his song. And so like several times when things happen or we're waiting or maybe things don't turn out the way we
He's
want
an
them
on
to,
time
and
God.
we sing.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. We sing it.
Your mom used to love. She would ask me to sing. I'd be like, Mama Lou, no, just give me a little taste.
Well, because all the verses are really neat too, because it brings out like stories from the Bible and then stories from the guys in prison. You know, like
That
you
is a good
said, like
song.
Ricky Ricardo. I call him Ricky Ricardo, but he's
Ricardo
not.
Cook.
Ricardo Cook.
Yeah.
You know, you added all those verses with stories, which is a really neat thing. So, I mean, how that song came to be, I guess, your song, and then also just you.
I didn't make up the song. No, that's a gospel hymn, like an African American gospel hymn.
Okay. Well, yeah, I know you didn't make it up, but yeah.
But we added to it. We added a lot of verses to it.
And then also just the I guess the backstory and the leading into the Christian dorm, like because I've heard tidbits of after, which I know you're going to share.
Yeah.
But like just leading into like how that really came to be and how you got there.
It was a miracle. It was amazing, and on the other side of it, when it got good, people started taking credit for it. I mean, even up to last year, I'm not going to say who I was in a meeting with, but I was in a meeting with somebody who was a volunteer at that time who said he started it. And this was in a group of I think it was a lawyer or something that was interviewing us. And I said, you did? No. I said, inmate started that. And he was like, no, I was part of a committee. And I was like, no, bro. I'm not going to let you take
But here's
credit.
the deal. But that you only said yes to going because
of Chris and Glover.
Yeah, because Chris and Glover.
I would have never even attempted to be a part of a Christian dorm.
Yeah.
The only reason I went was because they went. And the good part of that, though, when we got there and realized there were only 12 of us moving in, was that most of the mean religious people, they chose not to go too. So we were in a good place.
Well, next week.
Here we go. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. And we have started like the first For Real on the subscription part of our podcast. And that has been so fun and loving the feedback. Keep it coming.
Check it out. Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Straight Outta Prison podcast. For more exclusive content, head over to our website, teamjones.co/podcast.
Yes, you can subscribe by clicking on the Become a Patron button, and that's going to get you access to our For Real, which is very different than the highlight reel. Some very juicy content there.
Good stuff. Or you can look us up on Facebook and Instagram, Straight Outta Prison Podcast.
Yes, that takes the story to a whole new level where you can see some of the people that James talks about in his story and see some of the places that he's been. I've been loving it, and you will too.
Prison recipes.
Yeah, all the things.
Good stuff. We'll see you soon, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Getting anything out of these videos, please hit the like button, the subscribe. If you never want to miss a recipe or anything I do, hit the little bell and you'll get notifications.